Dreaming of a modern oasis? At All Modern, we offer the best of modern furniture and decor all in one place. Hand vetted for quality and delivered for free in days. Discover outdoor dining sets, sofas, and more in every style of modern, from Scandi to mid-century. That's modern made simple. Shop now at allmodern.com.
From director Wes Anderson, Focus Features and Indian Paintbrush present The Phoenician Scheme.
It's my most important project of my lifetime.
Meet Zsa Corda.
They keep getting assassinated, unsuccessfully so far.
He's the most bold, most elusive, most wanted man on the planet.
Help yourself to a hand grenade. You're very kind.
Starring Benicio del Toro, Mia Threppleton, Michael Cera, Tom Hanks, Scarlett Johansson, and Jeffrey Wright. The Phoenician Scheme. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. In theaters everywhere this Friday.
Content warning for discussions of family violence. Someplace underneath.
I'm going deaf from all that EDM music I listen to.
I think it's more that Nerd of Mouth is just extremely loud right before us.
Right. They're loud and smelly boys.
They are loud and smelly and kind of wet.
Oof.
But we love them.
We love them.
They're great guys. They're just also wet.
What is it about just being a wet human?
What is it about it?
Just like a lizard man?
Yeah, I think sometimes there's so many different thoughts about comic books that it just comes out, through all their pores at the same time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what sweat is, just your thoughts.
I think so. Or it's your soul leaving?
Yeah, it's your soul. Sometimes my soul stinks. Like, that's my M. Night Shyamalan moment when I'm just like, what is that smell? And it's like, it's from me.
Oh, that's your surprise ending?
Yeah.
It's been you the whole time.
That's the other white culture I can get behind. Goat yoga and sometimes being smelly.
Oh, I thought you meant M. Night Shyamalan. I'm like, I don't think that's white culture, unfortunately.
No.
Remember, being smelly.
I'm excited. I said earlier I'm going to do puppy yoga. So I do yoga and then the puppies come in and then you have a green juice.
I am surprised, and not in a negative way, but you're not necessarily always, you are great with dogs and dogs love you, but I feel like you're indifferent about dogs, and not in a negative way.
No, I do love dogs, but I also understand that they're a lot of work.
Yeah.
You have to really care and love them. Like, just taking them to the vet and getting their paws clipped occasionally.
Oh, let me tell you.
That's itself the bare minimum. And I feel like I've lived with so many people that could give a shit about their dogs. And I'm like, there should be some kind of questionnaire you get or something before you adopt a dog. Like, they should go to your house and be like, are you just laying in bed all day?
A lot of times, a lot of rescues do that, but not, not across the board. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said neutral or indifferent. I would say, yeah. But you also have watched my dogs and you've been very good with them and they love you.
I sing to them.
You treat them very well. I know you send me videos of you singing to them and I appreciate that.
Thank you. It's like, oh, God, this is going to sound horrible, but like kids, I love kids, but I understand that it's a lot of work. And when I'm around them, I give 110%. But then
You're great with kids.
I want to clock out.
Yeah,
I want to
sure.
go drink some vodka on my porch.
That's called being aware of self. And I think that actually shows maturity and growth.
Well, thank you.
I agree. I do think that. I think that's true. I think more people should be honest about those sort of things. And maybe we'll make less incels. Welcome to Listening to them, Natalie Jean.
I'm Amber Nelson.
Yeah, that is, let me tell you about how to raise kids.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm glad to hear about your puppy yoga. I don't think they should do that with babies. That'd be weird if they did that with kids.
Yeah, I'm
afterwards.
already where do you get the puppies from?
They're all probably need adopted, I imagine. That would be my guess. But I don't know. Probably.
Oh, just to seduce you to take one home?
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
whatever you got to do to get them babies adopted. And I think that's so fun. I love it. I want to go do animal yoga, all kinds, different whatever animals.
Oh, bear yoga where they just crawl around? Tiger yoga?
We should maybe workshop that. I'm sure that somebody has tried to do it. You know, to sell, you know, the Joe Exotics of the world maybe have done that before, but I'd give it a shot one time and then I'd be dead.
And then you'd be dead. That's a great way to die, though. I want to pet a polar bear. They're too friendly shaped.
I know, they are friendly shaped. I don't think you could even get close enough to pet it, though. I think it would just maul you.
No, I think they're like the worst animal on earth as far as like human beings go, because they like hunt you down and
the most dangerous, yeah. But great animals. No shade, dude. This is not a polar bear hating podcast. Not yet.
But you can use the bear gallbladder to get your penis erect. There's like farms. They do that. I swear to God, people use it for alternative medicine. They get their it's always like alternative medicine. It's always like making sure your cock is erect. I don't know why. Every time they're like, it'll make you hard.
Yeah, well, we're talking about alternative medicine today. That was just something we were thinking about last night, Henry and I, as we were watching our 100th millionth documentary about a destructive cult leader. And they all say they talk to God. And it seems like God wants them all to be serviced sexually by children. It seems like that's mostly what God wants.
Yeah, that's what our creator wanted. Have sex with kids.
It's really just every time. It's the same. Of the, I don't know, hundreds of documentaries and books I've read and saw about high control, tight-knit grouped people with a leader, I want to say 99% of them are saying that God said that you have to have sex with me and also that child has to have sex with me. And a lot of them call themselves dad or papa. The one we were watching last night, his name was Papa Pioneer, I think.
Ew.
Yeah.
Papa?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fucking gross. That was like during the election when all those guys would come up and be like, Daddy's home and he's going to take his belt off and beat his little girl. I'm like, shut the fuck up, old man. Go fucking kill yourself.
Don't you think?
Sorry, that's really mean, but that's my guttural reaction.
Do they not understand the projection that's occurring in that moment? Do they not have any self-awareness or do they know and just don't care?
No, they don't care. It's all like, this is their world because they're spoiled little ego brats. This is their world. This is how it is. Daddy's home. He's going to take his belt off.
It makes you sound, I hate to use their words, but so beta and so simpy to say stuff like that. Don't they know that?
Yeah, because they're all stupid fucking little princesses. They want to get bottomed. Every last one of them.
Okay, this is starting off poorly. So we are getting into we both did this. So let's get into the world of alternative medicine. And not in a way that I'm going to like send you to go take different alternative medicines, but that what we've been talking about in connection to the LDS Church is this wellness community that has sort of bubbled up over the last few decades that is completely insular or mostly insular to the LDS community, but also to like new age guru kind of people who also kind of just are on that circuit all the time. And this world of like alternative medicine being crossbred with mental health practitioners is not entirely a unique thing. Henry had a show at Contact in the Desert last year. They're doing it again. It's a great, fun, weird convention to go to because Contact in the Desert is about aliens. It's about, you know, sort of things that can't be explained, right? And so it's very cool, very fun, very weird. There's this most unusual cross-section of human beings that come to it and to have booths. But because it's sort of in the world of mysticism, there is wellness people, like alternative medicine people, people who are interestingly minded.
Niche people.
Niche, we'll call them. I don't know if any of them are LDS, but it wouldn't have been totally out of the realm of possibility. For example, the last podcast had a table that nobody was manning. It was just really stickers because they were doing a live show. And the guy who was set up next to them, I don't even know what he was selling. I think DVDs, but he defaced all of their merch because it had like the devil and stuff on it. And so he was like cleansing the table. Like it was just funny. Like nobody was mad. It was just like, but also scary because that person is so afraid of the iconography or the imagery of certain things that he feels the need to like bless them with his markers. If that makes sense.
Yes,
so,
very controlling, very like, I don't like it, so I'm going to like physically take it away.
And also fear-based, I think.
Yeah.
I think that his partially is that he is genuinely afraid that it's going to infect him in some way.
Yes. I think a lot of people, they're afraid to just kind of like be loose in the world. They don't know what could happen to them and they feel attacked. So they feel safety in being told what to do religiously. And I think that's why we're seeing these high control groups pop up even more.
Yeah, especially in the last decade as things have really kind of just jumped the shark in general.
And now daddy's home.
Daddy's home and he's taking all your money. So it is not a unique thing to the LDS community, right? It's a unique thing, though, to have the high control Christian conservative religion mixed with mental health, mixed with alternative medicine. That's a little bit more special, I guess. There's so much just going on here inside this church niche culture, and just researching the layers kind of makes my head spin. And to be honest, I truly can't process what it must be like as a person in that community living inside of this every day. It doesn't strike me as particularly shocking that this kind of lifestyle would devolve into mental health crises and compulsive behavior and, frankly, crash outs.
Wow. Do you think they know they're crashing out, or do you think it's just like, well, this is life and this is, of course, how you react? Just sort of like raw dogging emotions?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. And I feel like probably it is a case by case. But if you look at somebody like a Jody Hildebrandt or Lori Vallow, we're going to talk a little bit about Lori Vallow today, they seem pretty secure in their actions. You look at maybe like Ruby Franke, she seems to be expressing shock and regret about some of her actions, whether or not it's true, we don't know. But Jody Hildebrandt is still thoroughly convinced of her righteousness. And that could be for a myriad of reasons, probably her own DNA and her own biological genetic predisposition, but also the choices that she's made that include a lot of violence, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. She is sticking by it. She stands behind it, and she believes that she's right. Damn. Lori Vallow is kind of in that camp too, although you're watching her degrade. I don't think that she just did an interview, and I'm sorry if you don't know who Lori Vallow is, we will explain it. But she just did an interview from jail with Keith Moriarty. What's his name? The guy from Dateline? He did it with her in jail, and this is a murderer. She is still sticking with her LDS origin story about why she did it, and she's awaiting God to come down and take her out of jail. But you can see the mental decline in her face. Like she has changed drastically since she went to jail.
That is your soul coming out like sweat. It also comes out of your eyes.
Yeah. Also, I imagine being in jail is not fun generally. But yeah, so it's hard to say. Some people probably are aware of the fact they're having a crash out, and some aren't. For anyone who has struggled with compulsive thinking, for example, an eating disorder, you can probably empathize with those feelings a little bit, to an extent maybe. I'm going to say it's for myself, as somebody who struggled with this idea of like food obsession. You know, at various points in my life, food turns into a prison and an oasis at the same time. I'm very much recovered, but when you're in those compulsive mindsets about eating, everything becomes focused around the food. When and where you can have it, what you can have, what you can't do or can do because you don't or have access to your safe foods, or knowing that if you stray out of a schedule, you won't have enough caloric intake to stay conscious, things like that, like literally. So there was a time period where I would schedule out the exact amount of calories I could eat that would almost lead me to blacking out on the subway platform each evening, but
Natalie,
would be enough that I wouldn't black out.
Natalie,
this is a little story about my life that makes me sort of connect to some of the people who are living inside of this, because I want to try to sympathize to the level that I feel like I can. So I remember once when I was getting my hair very specifically done for a modeling thing in my 20s, and I was in the salon, and it was for like a job that was later on, and they were messing around with my hair, and they needed it to be really, really precise, and the stylist was obsessing over it. And it ended up taking like more than 3 hours than it was supposed to go. So it was supposed to be a brief preset thing where they were like going to look at a style for this later gig. And it ended up becoming hours overboard. And my mom happened to be visiting New York City that night, which is where I was at the time. And she wasn't there for me. She had been there for something else, but we were going to hang out once I had my hair done that night. She was able to come to the salon where I was getting this hair done. And so it was fine. It was not like I was losing out the time to see her. But every day during that time period in my life, I had a very, very specific food structure. Because of the extra hours I was in that chair, I didn't have the proper time to go take my, we'll call them food pellets.
Right. Handful of almonds or something.
Right. Before going to my mom's hotel afterwards to hang out with her, which is, not a big deal. It's New York City. There's 1,000 places that have food, right? My mom kindly even brought a piece of pizza for me to her hotel so that I could munch on it while we were catching up. But she didn't understand that I wasn't in the middle of a cheat day. I was so hungry and so tired, but the idea of eating that piece of pizza seemed physically impossible to me. My exhaustion led me to becoming almost hysterical. I was sobbing at my mom's hotel. My mom, who I only see once or twice a year, was completely flummoxed. I didn't understand. She didn't understand, because when you're in that mindset, you can hardly control yourself. But the idea of eating that in the middle of the week had become so foreign to me that it was as if she had told me to eat a bowl of pond scum or a live squirrel. It was an impossibility for me to do that. It was going to ruin my life if I ate that piece of pizza. No one would think I was worthy. Not only would I gain weight, that if I did gain the weight that I was so underweight I didn't have a period anymore. But if I gained that weight, I would become worthless. And I think even looking back at that day, I don't think I ever even ate it, despite the fact that I had been up since 6 a.m., worked out, worked a full day at my office job, went and prepped for this modeling job at night, and by 9 p.m. or so had probably only consumed about 300 calories.
Oh my God.
I could have told you the number down to the single digits of the amount of calories I'd eaten that day in that time of my life. And it took me many years, therapy and a medication that really saved my life, to break through those sorts of patterns.
Well, I'm glad you did. You wouldn't be here if you didn't.
No, I probably would have died.
Yeah, wasted away. Literally.
Yeah. And I'm telling you this story about myself because I try to put myself in the position of some of these people. And if I was in that mindset and then spiritualism was added on top of that into this kind of obsessive thought, the threat of eternal damnation that felt very real. Well, I guess I'm just saying that I could have been taken over the edge in a very real way. You
could have defecated on somebody's posters, on last podcast posters.
I feel like for me personally, that would have been the best case scenario. I think it would have been a lot more, I'm much more of a self-harmer than a hurting others kind of person. So I think that I wish it was only me pooping on satanic imagery.
Oh, I've got too many bills. If you need funds, you can apply in minutes at CashNetUSA.com and have the money in your account as soon as the same business day.
Okay, got it. Applying now.
They've been helping hardworking people cover emergency expenses since 2004.
Hey, look, I got it.
You've got this.
When you need money fast, be the hero. All loans subject to lender approval. Speed of funding is subject to verifications and your bank's processing times. See CashNetUSA.com for more details.
Always so fresh, delicious, and nutritious, Eggland's Best Eggs fuel the body with 6 times more vitamin D, 10 times more vitamin E, and 25% less saturated fat compared to ordinary eggs. Visit egglandsbest.com to learn more.
But when you're someone like Jodi Hildebrandt, who is very clearly trying, very clearly, I have to say, I know we can't guess people's sexuality, but it's pretty clear she's trying to fight away being gay, for one. Her mind, being inside of her head, must be like avoiding landmines inside of a haunted graveyard.
Yeah, can't think that. Mm-hmm. But you can think whatever you want.
You can. I think that they are taught they can't.
Yeah.
But yeah, you absolutely should be able to think about whatever you want. There's no such thing as a thought crime or a thought sin.
No, think of a purple horse. Who cares? It's your mind.
Yeah, even if you have horrible thoughts, it's not a crime. And I'm not saying I want everyone to have horrible thoughts, but a human experience is to sometimes visualize even things you don't want to visualize. It's part of having a brain.
Oh, yeah. Intrusive thoughts. I think of grabbing the cop's gun all the time. Do I do it? No.
Right. And that's okay. It's not bad that you have those thoughts because it's part of...
It's there. It's a guy walking around the subway with a gun. Yeah, I'm not going to think about what if I grabbed it. It's crazy.
Yeah. My favorite memory of my intrusive thoughts, I've told this before, is around this same time period when I was starving myself. New York is a weird place to go through really deep mental health issues because there's no escaping anyone at any point.
Yeah.
But I just remember there was this campaign for donating your eyeballs. And Jerry Orbach from Law and Order was on the poster. And basically it was a poster of his face being like, Jerry Orbach donated his eyes. Won't you donate yours too? I just remember at the time, I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was like, I was in panic because all I could think about was like, your eyeballs can come out of your face. You know, like you have those thoughts where you're like, yeah, obviously you know that, but then you're thinking about it and you're just like, what the fuck is this? And you're having these like crazy, like waterfall thought processes. And it's just so funny also now, like the idea that that is something being advertised on Subway is so weird.
Yeah, donate your eyes. Like if I bend over, they'll plop out or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have those weird thoughts. And so the idea that you would then have a weird thought or even a thought that's like not weird, like, oh, I have a vagina, but that woman over there, I'm very sexually attracted to her, that you would have that thought and then you'd have to be like, no, and then pray and like, I don't know.
Yourself.
I mean, we know this trigger warning that she was a cutter. We know that because of not her admitting it, but because of people reporting that she wore long sleeves all the time because she was covered. So yeah, that probably indicates somebody trying to not have certain thoughts go through their mind. Yeah, so obviously the layers are deep inside of trying to break down what's going on in these side cultures within the church. And I generally have a hard time focusing, but I can't take medications for that. It doesn't work for me. And I love coffee, but only so much works. But I've been having really, really great success with these really awesome energy shots called Magic Mind.
Oh, yeah. It's like, I call it my lock-in juice.
Oh, yeah.
When I want to lock in. Yeah.
It's true. It's something that a lot of times I can't take energy shots in general. It's the ingredients in them kind of make me feel sort of shaky. And it doesn't help me focus at all, actually. But these Magic Mind shots, they are organic and they have all the cordyceps, the ashwagandha, turmeric, all of these really clean ingredients, including matcha. And it's none of the stuff that makes me feel rattly and shaky from energy shots. It also has vitamins B2, B3, B12, and C and D3 to ignite your mood, energy, and immune system.
Wow. We all need more vitamins.
Yeah, we've actually been using Magic Mind in our house for quite a while, so I was pretty psyched when they reached out to us for a chance at being a sponsor.
Yeah, I was excited too. I had a little bit the other day, and then I was like, I went to work and was like, oh, I can like think and stuff at the show.
I can only do so much coffee a day before then. That also doesn't work for me anymore because then I just feel crazy. So if you're one of those people that feels a little bit too on the edge when you take energy shots, this is something that is a really good alternative.
That's right. And you get 50% off Magic Mind when you go to magicmind.com/someplaceedu. So if you go to Magic Mind's website and you type in someplace50, you'll get 50% off Magic Mind.
And it also lets them know that you are listening to our show, and it helps us too, if that matters at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a lot to take in at once. And I'm trying to connect in this way because I want you as the listener to try to feel a little bit of, I'm not looking for sympathy for these people, but it seems so insane.
An understanding of why they do this, so then maybe in the future we can eliminate it before it happens again.
And also just to not hear me what I'm saying and be like, there's no way this is true, because it is true. So the loose connection I have to maybe some of these folks is the compulsiveness. While I don't have OCD, the kind of anxiety that I have shares many similarities to that. And when we break down these kinds of stories, it's important to not have empathy, at least sympathy for a lot of the people. We have received so many emails from you wonderful listeners who are describing to us just unfathomable treatment from not just LDS mental health counselors, but church leaders and sometimes your own families. And high levels of control, no matter where that control's coming from, it tends to make people not even know themselves anymore. I can connect to that from when I was struggling with eating. Like, you don't have room for your own feelings anymore after a while.
Oh, my God. And then once you start having your own feelings, a weird thing I discovered is you get angry.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're like, wait a minute, this existed the whole time? It's like finding a room in your house and the room has rainbows and puppies in it. And you're like, this was here the whole time?
But you can't hear that until you're ready. So when people say that to you, you're mad about that too. You're like, how dare you? How dare you?
Yeah, I'm fine. This house is fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
This
Everything's great. I love it.
Daddy's home. I'm taking your belt off. This is fine. This is normal.
Seriously. But yeah, you're right. So I just want to say, those of you who are listening who managed to get out of this pattern, I really commend you. It's not easy to do. And are some of the perpetrators we're going to be talking about in the next couple episodes also victims? To some extent, I think yes. I think even Jody in her younger years was a victim. Even Lori Vallow Daybell was a victim. Even, and I do struggle with this one, but even Tim Ballard probably was a victim in his younger years.
Yeah, I mean, else why is he doing all this?
Yeah. So last week we introduced the group Eternal Core, not because it is the epicenter of all discord per se, but because it contains within it so many perpetrators of different crimes.
Oh, this is the conference with all the LinkedIn headshots.
Yes.
Yes.
At the center of Eternal Core is Thom Harrison and, to an extent, Ken Krogh. Both of these men have backgrounds in mental health counseling, though both men only have bachelor's degrees in the field. I don't think I ever gave Thom a higher credential than I meant to, but if I did, I was mistaken. I assumed early on that because of his bluster and his long career in the mental health field that he had a higher education in the mental health field, but he doesn't. It's not to say a Bachelor of Science is nothing, but if you're working in a mental health world for that long, because I think Thom Harrison's degree came from the 70s.
Wow.
I'm not saying that if you have a Bachelor of Science in psychology or social work or anything, that is very valuable. But the way that he presents himself, he doesn't say it, but it sort of makes him seem like he has something like a doctorate. He's not calling himself Dr. Harrison, but he's kind of insinuating it, if that makes sense. Also, he on his LinkedIn, which he is active on, he doesn't display that he's gained any further postgraduate education. And I feel like if you're going to stay in this field for decades and decades, you should maybe consider after education, right? And there's nothing that drives me more nuts than somebody who learns a little bit and then goes, I'm done, and then just goes and talks and talks and talks for decades and does not take in any new information, because that's unhealthy for everyone.
Yeah, especially mental health. It's always evolving.
Yes.
I have a friend of mine who works in the medical field, and every so often she's pulled into a meeting that's a refresher. Just one is to remind people that your clients are people, your customers are people. So don't just talk to them like shit. They're a human being.
My mom, who was a nurse for 40 years, she had to go to conferences all the time with medical professionals who would be updating on technology and different methods of inserting needles, things like that. She was an IV nurse. Mm-hmm. And that took lots of aftercare and updating her skill sets.
Right. But this mental health guy is just beat your kids. That's fine.
It kind of feels like that. I can't say fully, but that's what I kind of read from him without having full information. Regardless, both Thom and Ken love to bullshit. And I mean, same girl. I love talking. Can you tell?
Oh, yeah.
They love to talk, and they want to talk and talk at different platforms and conferences and microphones. And there's books and there's all this stuff floating around of them just saying everything they've ever thought. And when you listen to the clips of their speaking voices, I played some last episode, you can hear that they're very mild and meek sounding. And this is pretty common amongst LDS men. And on one hand, you can think, well, that's cool. I really don't need more blustery men screaming in my face.
Yeah.
But sometimes those mild-mannered voices can act as a quick and easy way to cover up really bad choices.
Yeah, like I was watching the Heritage Foundation. They had this vlog of their plans, and they were speaking so mild and mannered. But what they were saying is basically that our plan is to keep women in the home, and it's illegal to leave. Basically, like they were just making women slaves.
We're ending no-fault divorce. Isn't that peaceful for everyone?
Right, but just done in that voice, I was like, I was even soothed. And then I was like, wait a minute.
Wait, no.
Wait, no.
You can't talk like Bob Ross while you're saying things that are going to ruin my life. Paint a tree. Let me watch you paint the seascape. So this is a little bit of the vibe that Thom and Ken give off. Thom, as a reminder, was the, not transcriber, he was the one who gave the story to the author of the book Visions of Glory. So it was transcribed by John Pontius, right? Am I saying that correctly? Transcribed means written down.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was transcribed by John Pontius, this as told by Thom Harrison under the pseudonym Spencer. Do we remember this back? Yeah.
Yeah, so Spencer's the name on the book, but Tom's the guy that wrote it.
Tom's the guy who told the story to, I know.
Fuck, sorry. So Thom,
no, it's all just generic guys' names.
Okay.
So Thom Harrison.
He's the yapper.
He's the yapper. He has these visions, and he goes to this established LDS author named John Pontius and says, have I got a story for you?
Right.
And then John Pontius puts it all down and says, this is told to me by a member who had these visions, and we're calling this book Visions of Glory. The member wants to remain anonymous, and he's going to be known as Spencer.
Right.
But it was Thom Harrison. So John Pontius is but one of many, many LDS authors who write these kind of genre books, which I would call fiction, or is it? Where they go, yeah, it's about a story I'm telling. It's definitely, but is it my real? Oh, I don't know. It's sort of like not a dog whistle, but people who are going to take in these books and buy these books kind of already know that the author is sort of winking and going, this happened. I had this happen to me. You know, or they're just like Visions of Glory. When it first was coming out, it says, this story is about a true story from an LDS guy who was having visions.
Just blurring the line from like fact and fiction. So I guess if you live there in your mind, you're just kind of like,
yeah, it is that. It is blurring the line. And what we find out, what happens when you blur the lines in that way, it can be really, really dangerous. So I should point out, too, more than one of these authors from this LDS genre have been accused of abuse, like credibly accused of abuse, by the way. In many ways, it makes perfect sense to have this genre inside the LDS church, since the Book of Mormon is already technically Bible fanfic, right?
Right.
And being prophetic is so central to the religion. Of course, people who are predisposed to grandiosity or even creativity inside of this world that's so heavily structured, they're going to have limited sort of outlets for creative thought. So it doesn't seem that unusual to me that a lot of them would take this avenue of being like, well, here's a way I can write, do a creative project, also use the doctrine in the church, and also make myself feel big and strong, saying like I've had not only a prophecy, but a near-death experience, which is the thing we're going to be talking about today.
They love their near-death experiences.
They sure do.
Parents of twins, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Let's move! We have soccer practice, dance, and a play date.
Life moves fast, so every second counts, especially when it comes to big decisions like buying a car. That's why searching through Navy Federal's car buying service powered by TrueCar is a perfect place to start.
Thank
Thanks, Mom.
Navy Federal can help you find and finance the right vehicle so you can go wherever life takes you. Visit NavyFederal.org/TrueCar to learn more. Navy Federal Credit Union. Our members are the mission. Navy Federal is insured by NCUA. Credit and collateral subject to approval.
So there are a lot of books for sale about the end days that are fumbum for Mormons by Mormons. There's a whole market, including places like the Eternal Core Convention, where they have meetups. There's many of them. There's one called Preparing a People, which we're going to be talking about. And I kind of connect it to how my other show is about romantasy novels. And there are entire fantasy conventions where they have expos and all the authors come and, you know, pitch their wares. And there's like this connected, like-minded people get together, except at the fantasy conventions, no one's pretending it's real.
Yeah, nobody's like, no, but I really am a vampire.
Right.
Because you'd be like, okay, we need to get you help.
Uh-oh. Yeah. So when it's through this LDS lens, it is taken much more seriously. Like the most seriously you can take something, I guess. So perusing these books lightly myself, and by that I mean mostly reading the synopsises and reviews. I have not read a lot of the NDE books because I have a lot of other things to read and I don't really want to. A lot of them seem a lot drier than Visions of Glory, which is maybe why that specific book soared in popularity. There's also this idea that Visions of Glory became so important to this movement because within the beginning of the book, at the very beginning, the book becomes a little bit validated because the author, John Pontius, who then has a foreword by Spencer, which is Thom Harrison, it says in the beginning of the book that a member of the quorum heard Spencer's visions from Spencer and basically signed off on them that the visions are real.
It's like a game of telephone.
It is. And you have to remember, inside of Mormonism, the prophets inside the top of the church, it's completely acceptable and normal for them to say that they are hearing things and seeing things from God. The problem with other people doing it is it's not supposed to be them. It's not the idea that the visions are bad. It's that that's the wrong person you don't see visions normally.
Oh, like only a select view of people. Well, I guess that's what happens when you live your life around hierarchy.
Mm-hmm. But because in this book, Spencer says that one of the members of the quorum, which is the very close to the very top, signed off on these visions and like basically validated them. People reading it were like, oh, well, the presidency, the top of the church is cool with this book. So it must be real. And so people lost their minds when this came out. Like, it was one of the most popular books in Utah. It sold, at this point, it sold hundreds of thousands of copies.
I mean, I guess if your life is really boring, then you want to read about, angels and near death and, oh, I saw a big dragon in the sky.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that same way too. I don't want to just put a blanket statement over all people in the church. For me, as somebody who grew up on Nickelodeon and sugary drinks and fantasy novels, the life to me sounds like a punishment, but maybe I'm overstimulated by my upbringing. I don't know. But yes, I would also want to find fantastical worlds inside of this very vanilla, just like caffeine-free world.
Yeah, everything's pre-programmed for you. I saw this video of this woman. She was religious, and she was like washing dishes. And she said, when you're washing dishes and over it, but you hear the horns of Jericho, like she's ready to go and be relieved. I want to be like, girl, you can also just not wash the dishes.
Yeah.
You can just like put them down and go out and like bring your kids with you to McDonald's. I don't know.
Which also brings up, I don't know what religion she was specifically, but there are a lot of these kind of groups, including the Latter-day Saints, who are eagerly waiting for the end of the world. They want to be somewhere else. And I feel so sad that a lot of them could just shift things in their real life and probably be a lot happier.
Yeah, but it's
instead of praying for the world to explode.
Oh, God. Maybe your life sucks because you're involved in this incredibly rigid, sterile program. And if you just shook that off, maybe heaven is here.
Yeah, exactly. So for whatever reason, people went gaga for Visions of Glory.
They sound like a cool metal band. Visions of Glory.
A lot of it does sound epic, like, arena rock. Mm-hmm. But because they don't really have that.
No, what do you do?
What I mean?
Yeah.
When I see people like really losing their mind at like Christian music and stuff, I do understand, because I feel the spirit, quote unquote, when I'm listening to music I love, especially live. It's like, it does things to your brain. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But
they're not allowed to listen to that.
No.
So everything's just like tapered down. So then someone comes along with Visions of Glory and you're like, yes.
Next World's going to be sick as hell, bro. So because this book blew up, the church suddenly is like, whoa, what's going on here? As scholars have pointed out, the church as a whole does not like the razzle-dazzle, especially if it's not directly from their mouths. In general, they don't want something to be too loud that is not their words at the top. You can see the difference in this if you go to Deseret Books' website. There's these different sections, right? You can click on the website and, the tabs at the top of places you can search. And you go into the book section and you have 4 different genres. You have fiction, gospel voices, nonfiction, and children's. So they don't want any books outside of gospel voices to get too into the mind of the members. And the gospel voices kind of books are ones that like the top biblical scholars from BYU have written, or the First Presidency has written, or people in the Quorum of the 12, the books that they've written. Those are considered gospel.
But they're not reading Stephen King.
No. Even in the fiction book section, it's only stuff that is approved by the rigid structure.
That is so sad. You should read books you disagree with.
Well, they're not doing that. No. They're not doing that. They're absolutely not doing that.
Oh my God. And then like challenge yourself, and then you're more secure in your religion.
Well, you sound like a witch, and I need you to stop talking. So even the fiction books they have in Deseret Books, and even the nonfiction, it's like they don't want any of those books too influential. The Gospel Voices books are the most important. And even though Visions of Glory is no longer being sold on Deseret, don't worry, you can still get it. Jeff Bezos has got your back. It's there. But those kind of books are not meant to be in the same category as Gospel Voices, right? But it got out. People went crazy for it. And it seems like Visions of Glory was just the right recipe of doctrinally sound, scripture-y things mixed with like a Michael Bay spice on it, that it just popped off in the community before the leadership could stop it. And in fact, we learned that some of the leadership of the church were actually seemingly pretty cool with it, because as we're going to see with all of these cases, there is a contingent of leadership in this church who are alternative thinkers, who are really, really leaning into the prophetic side, the sort of cerebral magic side of the Mormon church.
Oh, so like warlocks.
Yes, they're acting as I feel like there's part of the leadership that is very businesslike and knows that they're running a corporation, and then the other side is like, oh no, we're magic.
Oh.
So when Visions of Glory came out, part of the leadership was like, hell no. Then some of them were like, no, it's pretty cool, guys. Actually. So let's talk about the NDE aspect of Visions of Glory along with this entire niche genre. The near-death experience trademark is an important part of LDS culture.
That's a whole trademark?
No, I was just joking.
I mean, I get it. Like, it sounds cool and it justifies your whole life.
It does. And a lot of apologists would want me to say that this NDE thing is a niche. It's a fringe belief in the church. That's not like, they're not like us. Those are different. That's not what normal church members are talking or feeling or thinking about. But I'm here to be as honest as I can, and this is not fringe. Yes, the everyday member may not be fixated on the last days or visions or having an out-of-body experience, and your church leaders may not be on the pulpit. Do they call them pulpits in the church?
Yeah.
Every Sunday, screaming fire and brimstone, but beyond it being integral to the doctrine itself, The orchestrators and the enablers of these pockets that become violent are in the top leadership of the church. They are the people running your church, are the ones who are instigating a lot of this.
Wow.
Though Visions of Glory has been in the news the last couple of years, there was a dust up all the way back in 2014. So much so that Thom Harrison was outed as Spencer and was forced to issue an apology and an explanation. So this book came out in 2012. It caused such a stir in the community that by 2014, leadership who was not happy with this book and how people were reacting to it found out it was Thom Harrison who told the story. And they said, if you want to keep your church membership, you need to say you're sorry and explain that it's not real. Because there were so many members taking this as gospel.
Oh, wow.
So how did this apology come to be? So you need to get a sense of how long this movement has been permeating in the church. And some of the most well-rounded coverage of these crimes in the Exmo community are definitely the channels Hidden True Crime and Mormon Stories. And when they discuss their coverage of Visions of Glory, which they've done quite a bit if you want to deep dive further into it, they talk about how they receive a lot of pushback from active members or even some maybe recently active members about, while this book may have some weird connections to a bunch of crimes, to not throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. There are ardent defenders of this book to this day saying it's not the book's fault that these things have happened. And while I agree with that to an extent, they're so dedicated to the idea of this fucking book that they won't see how much damage it's caused and this belief system around it, how kind of irrational it is. So again, when it came out in 2012, it was a buzz. So much that the church called Thom in for a disciplinary hearing when they found out it was him, because he was a known guy in the church. He was working in the mental health field around the church. People knew who he was. And they were like, bro, and also him just being near Salt Lake City, you're already kind of in the thick of things if you live there. And they were like, listen, dude, what is going on with this book? Why are you saying this stuff happened to you within the book? And if you want to listen to last podcast on the left's breakdown, they talk a lot about it there. There's many places where you can hear the entire story of Visions of Glory, but it's a lot of having visions of the end days and what's going to happen and what the people need to do and who's involved and all that stuff. It's very action movie-esque.
So just like a book of like fabulous lies that people are like, this is awesome. And then they go commit crimes and they're like, but Visions of Glory said.
Yeah. And also it's weird because the book is like so many latter day kind of ideas. It's not my idea of awesome. It sounds horrible. There's a lot of murder.
I kind of want to read it.
Violence. I have it. You can read mine if you want. Don't buy another one, please. So yeah, the reason he was called in is because he was claiming in this book that all of these things happened. He had these visions and they were really from God. However, even in those disciplinary hearings back then, there were high up LDS leaders who were kind of into it. And people like Dallin H. Oaks, who is a First Presidency member right now, sort of like encourage the near-death experience idea. He says it in different ways that is a little bit winky, but he is like, you know, God works in mysterious ways, so people must be having visions. I would, take it to, you gotta, if God calls you, God calls you.
Just in the LDS voice.
Oh, yes, I understand. God calls you.
This reminds me of like, when I'm out and about and doing something in the real world and I look on Twitter or whatever, when I look on Twitter and they're like, this reminds me of my video games. Oh. I'm like, you can also just go outside. That's not video games.
And I get it. I also have escapism things. And I'm not a gamer in the sense that I spend life playing like open-ended, open world games or anything like that. But I understand there's like a game culture. I'm an adventure game nerd girl, and I have my little YouTube videos that talk about their favorite adventure games.
Yeah.
And there's a time and place for that.
But you're not wishing a war because you're really good at Call of Duty.
No. And also, if that's all you're thinking about all the time in your real life, that probably is a problem. I go to my little corner of the internet when I feel like talking about that. You know what I mean? So this is their life. This is full time, all they do, all they think about, all they're, basing their decisions on. And so when Thom went in, got that disciplinary hearing, It was partly because at the beginning of the book, like I said, he told the story and said one of the upper echelon people of the church heard my visions and said it was okay. And so this is why people take the book seriously. The person who Thom was referencing was a guy named Neil A. Maxwell. And by the time the book came out, Neil A. Maxwell was dead. So he was a quorum member, and Thom knew him. And he claims that Neil A. Maxwell heard his visions, signed off on them, and then when he told John Pontius these visions, told John Pontius also the top levels of the church heard these and they agreed that they're real. So that's what ended up getting put into Visions of Glory at the beginning. And I regret to inform you, we're going to need to be listening to a little bit of the beginning of the book.
This is so funny. I never want to hear astrology isn't real again. Like if these dudes can get around and make a book on this, I can talk about being a Cancer Aries moon.
100%, Amber. Technically, you could probably point to more science for astrology than this shit.
Than this.
I'm sorry, everybody who has a belief system. I'm not saying you can't believe in spiritual things. But let's listen to a little bit of the beginning of this book. It's what I would consider kind of dull, but I think it's good for us to hear where this is coming from, okay?
All of these years I have felt painfully alone because of not being able to speak of the things I had seen in vision. They have become a big part of me, who I am, and what I am doing in my life, and I am constrained to silence. Until speaking to you, I didn't even realize how they could come to full accomplishment in my life, especially knowing my personal circumstances, poor health, and weaknesses. I have always known they were true, but only until recently did I even suspect how they could come to pass. I have been persecuted and rejected the few times I opened up, even a little. I have been very alone in this for a long time. It has been one of the hardest parts of this journey. One of my assignments for the church for many years has taken me to the church office building in Salt Lake City once a month. I meet with various general authorities and had come to know and love them personally. Over the years, I had become good friends with one of the members of the Quorum of the 12. We became personal friends, and we had, as he was inclined to say, broken bread together and spent many wonderful times visiting on numerous occasions. One evening while alone with him, I was prompted to tell him one of my visions. He listened with great interest and then concluded by telling me it was from God and that I should treasure it up in my heart, write it down, and not speak of it until the Lord told me to. He also counseled me not to try to interpret the meaning of it. He said, when the Lord wants you to understand it, He will send someone or give you the meaning. But until then, it is God's will that you keep these things to yourself and don't try to interpret them without further revelation. My apostle friend became a staying power and source of much comfort for me. He became a source of security in this vale of tears and my source of peace, that what I was seeing was of God and not something of which I should be ashamed or fearful.
So as you hear, that's the beginning of Visions of Glory. It's Spencer explaining that this core member told him that it was real.
Yeah.
And that he should share it.
And they're so particular about everything. I mean, these guys are in finance, so they're not going to let this stuff slip.
Yeah. And also, again, when this book came out, Neil A. Maxwell had already been dead for like 10 years almost. So there was no way to even verify with him whether this was said in the first place. But Thom Harrison says that as Spencer in the book. So when this came out, everybody who was, not on board in the top leadership was pissed at him. They said, Thom, in order to maintain your good standing in the church, you need to issue a retraction statement. So this book came out in 2012. His apology letter, was made public on March 23rd, 2014. It's very long, and I'm not going to be reading it all here, but you can find it really easily by searching Thom Harrison apology letter. But this is how it starts.
To whom it may concern, and my priesthood leaders, after meeting with my stake president on this 23rd day of March 2014, I write this letter to disclose my feelings and present opinions of the book Visions of Glory, which was published by Cedar Fort Publishing Company in December of 2012. I disclose that I am Spencer, the person whom the majority of this account is written about.
I have bad news. I am not going to be able to donate my eyes to science because they have rolled fully into the back of my head from listening to Thom Harrison talk. So they're not available anymore. It's hard. It's hard for me to not roll my eyes fully out of my brain when I hear him speak because he is so full of himself.
Yeah, it sounds like narcissistic behavior, which can also come across as victim when he was just like, oh, I've been so shunned and I can't open up. And maybe you're shunned for a reason.
Well, and also, if you go through and read that letter, he is also making himself the victim in the apology letter. So it's a couple pages long, and he predominantly blames John Pontius, who had conveniently passed away the year prior. So the book came out in 2012 by John Pontius. John dies the next year. I'm not saying that like anything nefarious happened. It just conveniently worked out so that Thom Harrison could use a dead person to blame the book on.
Right.
Being like, well, he embellished and he changed stuff and I didn't know people would want to read it. Oh, so he also kind of blames this in this letter, blames the sitting prophet at the time, whose name is Thomas S. Monson, for encouraging members to share their testimonies. So in this apology letter, he's like, I'm just a boy. I didn't know that people would be. I was just listening to the prophet. And then John Pontius, he took it and he made it different.
No, he knew. And as a Cancer, I know when people are being emotionally manipulative.
Yes,
I can
girl.
Smell it a mile away.
That's right. You tell them. Also, this is me being a straight hater, but Thomas S. Monson looks like his jaw hinges like a snake. He scares me. I don't like him. I don't know if he was a good or a bad man, so I'm just being a straight up hater. But anyway, Tom also states that John, again, like he embellished things and he didn't think that many people would actually care about his story and he didn't realize people were going to want to read. So look, I'm not suggesting in this that Thom Harrison had sinister intentions when he told this story, but I think he's pretty delusional and arrogant. And in fact, I can say pretty confidently that he's delusional because aside from the Eternal Core conference, he also had Eternal Core, the podcast, and he has said all sorts of stuff on it, including things like he can go into a room and look around at the children and be able to tell which ones were sexually abused, which I don't think I need to tell you is so disturbing to even have the idea. Just imagine this man. He goes into a room and he stares at a group of little kids and then thinks about which ones were being sexually assaulted and goes like, I know this one and this one and this one.
Damn.
The amount of mental illness that would take to not only think that you could tell that, but also that you see a group of kids and you start thinking about them being assaulted when you walk in.
Damn, and this goes of like, yeah, you can think of anything, whatever you want. But it's also like, what? You don't have to write that down.
But also he's saying he is getting this message, this information from
God? No, you're just
source
sick.
Or whatever.
No, yeah, God. This is, again, people that have done no internal discovery. Yeah. And it's all like, oh, that outside thing makes me upset, so we got to block that and shut that down. And they think that's normal. And that's not normal. That's you being a narcissistic sociopath.
Yeah. Those are not intrusive thoughts. That is a God complex.
Yes.
And the idea that you go into a room of children and the first thing you think about is rape is weird. And like being able to discern. Anyway, it's I probably also goes without saying he is connected to a lot of the sort of unhealthy sexual addiction treatment, sexual abuse, satanic panic kind of stuff as well.
So it's like the food thing. You can't think about the food, so it's your whole life. Yeah. And that's these guys with sex addiction.
But he is so this guy, Thom Harrison, I'm going to just say it straight up, he obviously has some sort of complex where he thinks he knows everything and that he's being spoken to by this greater thing. So even though he wrote this letter to maintain his LDS membership, regardless of his public expression of regret, he did not stop leaning into the idea that he was some sort of prophet. Even if he doesn't say the words prophet, he's as good as wearing a robe, carrying a staff, wandering the countryside. I know this is how he sees himself, allegedly.
Oh, like a wizard?
Like Jesus, like walking around with just this crowd of people following and nodding and being like, yes, my sheep. Yes, let me tell you, come sit with me upon this rock. That's kind of the vibe he gives off. And in this, doing this book, having all of this stuff that he's doing on the side with Eternal Core and all this, he hasn't lost authority within the church. In fact, he's gained it. He's been a bishop for a long time, and he is working with the missionaries. He decides whether or not they're mentally stable enough to go out into the world, which is really alarming.
This guy?
Yeah.
This weird guy?
Yes.
Damn.
So I'm just going to say, I don't know if he's qualified to do that.
No.
I know he has a degree from the 70s from University of Utah, but I don't know.
You could still smoke inside in the 70s. The world has changed, sir.
Yeah. So his work goes on. In that apology letter, he also says, I have no control about whether or not the books get sold. It's under the Pontius's, like, when somebody dies, they have their...
their estate?
Yeah. So it's under the Pontius estate, essentially.
Oh. Is it kind of like when Elon Musk on Twitter, he's just like, well, I can't control people making rape threats. I guess if it's freedom of speech. I'm like, you kind of can. You could shut him down.
Yeah. And I genuinely don't know whether or not John Pontius's widow is just refusing to stop making sales because it's making money, or if it's just another way for him to deflect blame. But he basically says, well, I mean, people are going to read it. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's not for sale in any of the bookstores. But again, Jeff Bezos, he's got you. It sold hundreds of thousands of copies, and his letter did not tamper down the mania that seems to accompany it. In July of 2023, an LDS Utah mother named Lori Daybell, previously Lori Vallow, previously Lori Ryan, previously Lori Leoja, maiden name Lori Cox, was sentenced to several consecutive life terms for the murder of two of her children, her biological daughter, Tylee, and her adopted son, Jason Jackson, or JJ. We have mentioned them on the show because at the time when we were starting this show, the children had been found, but the story was all over the news, and they had been considered missing for quite a while. So the children disappeared in 2019 and were found later on. So Lori and her new friend during that time period of 2019 and 2020, she had a new friend. It was a married temple-sealed LDS man named Chad Daybell. And they were put under a spotlight because of their strange behavior amidst her children being missing, which was reported by outside people when they hadn't heard from the children for a while and realized that Lori was making a lot of strange excuses for why the children have been seen. So then that's how the police became aware, not because Lori reached out to them.
Oh, my God. Think of how many, and this is off topic, but how many like at-home school kids just go missing.
And we've talked about a couple, and it's unfortunate that in this administration, they're trying to lessen the amount that homeschool parents have to check in because they're doing this whole, like, the government shouldn't control our children, but really not caring about the number of children who aren't accounted for because of homeschool. I mean, that just happened with... Did you see that case about the 30-something-year-old guy who set his house on fire to escape?
No. Oh my God, he was really skinny, right?
Yeah.
And his mom controlled him her whole life?
His stepmom. He was pulled out to be homeschooled and fell out of the system because of that for 20 years. And he was on death's door when he saved himself. But just we've covered other ones too. And this administration is working diligently to make it so that parents have less and less accountability to outside sources when they pull their kid out of school. And it's really tragic.
What is it with these organizations of like religion and whatever that they treat women and kids as like a guy's property?
They're items for sure.
They're items, which people would have more kids if we had like a community to help out. It's torture to take a woman away from the world and then stick her in a house and make her keep giving birth.
But it plays into the high control, right? That's an easier way to control people and streamline where their attention is and their money is. And while we can criticize the government all day, government is, at the end of the day, community and people and outside eyes. And sometimes to do insidious things, you need fewer eyes on it, right?
Yeah.
So
she goes off to Hawaii, has a great time.
She does. And by the way, Lori had, her kids out of school. So it was a lot easier for them to go missing. So this is all happening in 2019. The children disappear. And then towards the very end of the year, suddenly Chad's wife dies. She was only 49 years old. It was first taken as natural causes, partly because I think of his standing in the community. I'm just throwing stuff out there. I think because of the tight-knit community, they didn't really deeply look into her death. It's now believed to have been a murder. That trial hasn't happened yet. But this is happening. The kids disappear. Chad's wife dies. And then just a couple weeks later, the two get married in Hawaii, shortly after the death of Chad's wife. By all accounts, a beloved LDS woman named Tammy. Not only did Chad and Lori get married in Hawaii, they ended up kicking back resort style afterwards, having a great time.
Yeah, kids are gone. You don't have to worry about them. Yeah. Drink all those pina coladas.
Oh, they don't drink.
Oh, virgin pina coladas.
Virgin, thank you. Excuse me. They are not these heathens drinking.
No.
Okay.
Can they even say the word virgin? Because that attributes to sex. Like, do they go to the bar and be like, one non-alcoholic pina colada, please?
Maybe. It's quite possible. So they're at this resort in Hawaii, and they're having a great time as the extended family and now the greater population is panicked looking for these missing children. Now that the police have been notified, the news stations have been notified, everyone's invested. Like, where are these kids? Why is this couple acting like this very strange way? We now know, unfortunately, by this time, the children are deceased. At the time, we don't know where they are. In fact, that year of 2019, Lori's children had been killed. Chad's wife died, again, now believed to be murder. Lori's fourth husband was shot and killed by Lori's brother, who also died mysteriously shortly after. And there was an attempted murder of Lori's niece's former husband, Brandon, though it was unsuccessful. There are other questionable deaths linked to her. There was so much evidence pointing to Chad and Lori having something to do with the children's disappearance that while they were in Hawaii, kicking back, getting their vitamin D poolside, police show up to deliver papers. Basically, you've been served. You have to show up at court in order to tell us where your children are. So the body cam footage from this day was released shortly after because there was so much national interest. And eventually when the court case was happening, people were watching this footage for the evidence. So we've all seen this body cam footage of the police showing up to Chad and Lori at the pool in Hawaii saying, here's papers. You have to go back to mainland, go to court, and tell us where your kids are. In this body cam footage, we see Lori. She's lounging in a very sexy bikini. And if you look at the beach chair next to her, it might be hard to make out in this screenshot I've attached, Amber, but there is an open copy of Visions of Glory on her beach chair.
Wow. I mean, damn, girl.
So Chad and Lori were big fans of this book.
That's not a beach read.
It is for Lori Gavallo. They were, in fact, living out loud in a way that indicated that they took, not only were they fans of Vision of Glory, but they took it quite literally and fully put it into their lives. They yes-anded it. We're not going to deep dive through the murders, though I could. Again, check out last podcast if you want to hear more about it. Also, Hidden True Crime and Mormon Stories has done incredible coverage of it. But Chad and Lori are more than just fans of this book. No, they have close connections to Thom Harrison, the near-death experience community, and as a result, the wellness community attached to Thom. More than that, Chad was himself a published author of NDE-based prophetic fiction, or is it? And also a publisher of LDS-based NDE and prophetic media. Yes, Chad was putting these books out alongside Thom Harrison and their buddies.
Oh, so they're in the sauce.
Yes. Here's a description of Chad Daybell's company from the BYU website for some reason.
Spring Creek Book Company is a privately owned publishing company that was formed by Chad and Tammy Daybell on March 1st, 2004. Chad and Tammy have several years of experience in the LDS publishing world, both as authors and editors. Their objective is to publish high-quality, uplifting products that will strengthen and bless the lives of families. The company only publishes material that supports the values of the LDS Church. That's very toothy. It makes me want to tuck in my shirt and say, yes, ma'am.
Yes. However, Chad was not tucking. He was tucking his shirt, but he was doing a lot of other stuff too. And Tammy, his wife, was the person who died in that interaction we just talked about. So his book company is right alongside all the other things you're going to see at Eternal Core. He knew Thom. They all were a part of this same community. So the Visions of Glory that Thom wrote is on a table next to Chad's books about the near-death experiences, as well as some other books we're going to talk about. So even as I harp on this book and Thom Harrison, I want to make clear that I don't believe that everything occurred because of this one book and because of Thom Harrison. I look at it the same way people might focus on an alcoholic who's getting sober. So to say that the major problem can go away by disavowing this book and going easy breezy, everything's fine now, is kind of like saying this alcoholic has stopped drinking, but has become a dry drunk, right? So
what's that?
So a dry drunk is somebody recovering from alcoholism who has successfully abstained from drinking for a period of time, but still displays the same dysfunctional behaviors they had when they were using. So
like example, if I got drunk and screamed at people, not that I do, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta be sober. Fuck you.
Yeah.
And like doing that sober.
So it's like taking the alcohol or the book. Yeah, you take that away, sure, that's good. But the underlying issues were already there. And if you don't deal with the wider picture, you can't just blame Thom Harrison for all of this, because this was already set up. This was already a problem because of the way the doctrines were being set up, the way that the culture was around.
Yeah.
It was primed. It was primed for the book.
This is a symptom of a disease.
Yes. The alcohol, the book, they're not great, but you just take that away and we're not dealing with the rest of it. So we are going to talk a little bit more about the wider scope of the world around Thom, Chad, and Ken from here. It doesn't end at them. There's a lot more bad stuff that happened outside of that. But this, we're going to open the world as we go a little bit. It's the best way I can do to describe how this is all connected.
So we're kind of like opening the door to this haunted house, and it's like, come with me to the kitchen.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go, soon we'll be in the basement next thing you know.
Oh, God, I hope not. Nothing good happens there. There's always an open toilet in Pittsburgh. Do you know what a Pittsburgh toilet is?
Is that where you shit on someone's chest? No, that's a Denver steamer.
Cleveland steamer. That's Ohio. That's where those bastards in Ohio, that's what they do. The Pittsburgh toilet comes from back whenever there used to be mining culture and steel mills and stuff. There was a toilet that you would enter from the basement to get towards the sink and toilet, so that if you were covered in metal and dust and dirt, you wouldn't track it through the house. So there would just be like this toilet and sink that didn't have a room around it in the basement. It's called a Pittsburgh toilet.
Oh.
So that's what maybe's in the basement in the house of discord.
A Pittsburgh toilet
Pittsburgh
or
toilet.
Chad shitting on Laurie's chest.
I don't know if he really, I think he was just excited that a lady was going to SSD. I don't know. She was very pretty.
She is. I'll give her credit. Wellness community, she is hot.
She's got great abs. Woo! Got good abs. She was in beauty pageants for a long time.
Yeah. Do I have to be a serial killer to get good abs?
Well, I think it's easier to not have things you'll enjoy. You know what I mean? Like if you don't enjoy life, you don't get to have fun food and enjoy like a nice tipple and some bread.
Espresso martini. I want the alcoholic pina colada, please.
Yes, please. I say it's better to have just beautiful regular women's abs and not a flat belly like that, and not kill your family. So if that's what I got to do, I guess I'll just have the martini.
Well, maybe if she had some magic mind, she wouldn't have.
I know. I agree.
Crazy.
Don't even finish that sentence. No. But yeah, no, I thank you once again for Magic Mind for being partners with us. I love this product, and it really will help me get through the next layers of this, because it is a little bit of a mind F around.
Well, drink some Magic Mind and go read the book, Their Visions of Glory, and then just explode.
I do think it would help, because the book is a bit rambly. Magic Mind, help us, please. Coming up next week, we sadly cannot discuss Chad Daybell without addressing the patterns of family violence that occur within high-stress, high-demand cultures. The saints are very far from being exempt.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner? You may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Summer's heating up, and your snack game should too. Get My Mochi ice cream, the ultimate summer snack. My Mochi is creamy ice cream wrapped in sweet dough for a bite-sized treat that'll make you feel joyfully chill. Whether you're beach-bound or backyard hanging, My Mochi hits the sweet spot. With fun texture and bold flavors like strawberry, mango, birthday cake, and cookies and cream, summer snacking just got an upgrade. Look for the purple box of My Mochi at Walmart or visit mymochi.com to find a store near you.